say it with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And that, my friends, was the calm before the storm. But first, you had many places to be tonight. You chose to be here with me. And for that, I am forever grateful. Thank you very, very much for joining the show. Whether you're watching us live on the YouTube channel, Rumble channel, X, formerly Twitter, please like and subscribe. Share the channel with your family and friends. And let them know the show's on 8 p.m. Central on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So, before we dive into the crazy things that are happening right now in the news, many of you have sent out messages and emails saying that you're very thankful that I'm alive. I too am very thankful and blessed to be able to come back and do this show. So if you're not aware of what happened over the weekend, I'm going to give you a brief summary of it. First, let me say this. I have been in some situations in my lifetime that were very, very frightening. As someone who has over 1,900 parachute jumps, 500 hours of scuba diving, 1,600 hours in flying an aircraft, 4 combat tours, working in law enforcement. There have been many, 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 many times where I was scared shitless. Literally thought, this is a really bad situation, and wondered whether or not I would live to see another day. What happened to me and my son on Sunday, I can honestly say was the scariest thing I've ever experienced. And I hope to never, ever experience it again. We were out on our boat. The video you saw just a few moments ago was on our way across Lake Pontchartrain, which is about an hour and a half drive in the boat, doing about 40 miles per hour, to go have a late or an early dinner at a place we love to go to called the Blue Crab. And it's right on the water. Pull your boat up, dock, go in, enjoy yourself. Flip-flops, shorts, tank tops, doesn't matter. You come right off the water and enjoy wonderful, fresh Gulf of America and Lake Pontchartrain seafood. So on the way over there, I was having a great time. My son made that recording of me as I was driving. He said, "Dad, dance." So I started dancing to the music and playing to the camera. It was a great trip. We had a wonderful time crossing the lake. Now, before I get into the horrors of what took place, let me tell you this. I'm 63 years old and I've been boating all of my life. Growing up, my dad had boats, my uncles had boats, cousins had boats, we all had boats. And then when I became an adult, I bought boats. So I've been boating literally for 63 years. I a captain of my own boat since 18. Well, probably actually 16 when I had my first little small bateau. And then went on to have fishing boats and ranger boats and, lots of them. Growing up, right here where this incident took place this weekend, Lake Pontchartrain, the Tchefunchy River. Hell, I learned to water ski out there. Been on that lake and that river many, many times. A lot of the videos that I bring to you, besides those when we do down in Florida or off the coast of Biloxi, are from Lake Pontchartrain and the Tchefunchy River. So the first thing that I always do, and all boaters should do this, is check the weather forecast before you launch out into the water. I do this religiously, no different than when I go flying. Before I go flying, we check the weather forecast to see what we're going to encounter along the way, deviate our route, or just don't go fly because of the weather conditions. Because weather is what gets you killed, whether it's in aviation or whether it's out on a boat. I've been in some very, very bad weather situations in aviation, but never in a boat. I go a step further. There are 3 separate weather stations that I monitor, that I looked at before my son and I launched. Our local WAFB and WBRZ's weather, which is our local weather, to see what the weather was going to be on the lake. The future forecast, going and coming, and the weather radar. And I look at the National Weather Service and their reporting and their weather radar. And nothing showed anything interfering with this trip. We were going to be able to get across the lake, go enjoy our dinner, and come back with no problems. In fact, the chance of rain was at like 10%. And it was late afternoon showers, but nothing on the radar and nothing of significant danger to be worried about. So we get over there, we enjoyed our dinner, and now it's time to head back. And as we got down to the boat, I decided I may as well go ahead and put more fuel in it, because I was a little under half a tank of fuel. Boat hosts 70 gallons. And just to be on the cautious side, who knows if something happens and you have to deviate from your plan, better have more fuel not needed than less fuel and need it. So we motored over to the pumps and we put in another probably 40 gallons of fuel, which was a damn good thing. We then turned around, headed out of the marina, out into the lake, started heading towards the Causeway, which is the longest bridge in the world, goes across Lake Pontchartrain. And as I'm going, I am seeing storms that appear to be building to my northeast that weren't on that radar. And so I told my son, bring up the radar. And he does, and he brings it up, and he brings it over, and he shows it to me, and I'm looking at it. And it does show a storm popping up, but it's over north of Lacombe, Louisiana, and not in Lake Pontchartrain. But what I'm looking at appears to be already in the lake, heading in the direction that we need to go, and we were going to intercept this storm. And I'm thinking, this doesn't make any sense. Okay, bring up this radar and bring up that. So he brought up all 3 radars for me, and all of them showed this storm in a location that it wasn't. It was literally in our path. And the more we went, the worse it got. We crossed underneath the causeway. We started heading out now in open water. You know, we were probably 2 miles away from the causeway when I text a friend of mine that's also a boater, been boating all his life down here, owns a boat. He's like one of my emergency contacts when I'm out on the boat. I always have a boat plan where I let him know we're in the water, when we're going to be out of the water, where we're going, and he does the same thing for me. So there's always that extra backup. And he said, Doug, I see that storm popping up. It does not appear it's going to interfere with you. It looks like you've got plenty of time to get by. And I said, yeah, I get that. I see that, but there's lightning everywhere. I mean, like it's getting bad. And so I stopped texting with him, and now I shut the engines back, pull the engines back. We're sitting there in the water. I'm looking at my son, and I'm thinking, well, what do we do now? If I keep going straight, it appears we're going to run into this storm, but yet, according to all three radars, that storm shouldn't be where it's at. So I can't rely on that anymore. And with the lightning happening, now it starts raining. I thought the best case scenario is I turn around and I go back about 2 miles, get back to the causeway where we can at least get under the causeway with the boat. And so we've got that protection. So we started doing that. And the closer we got to the causeway, the worse the rain got, the worse the lightning got. The waves started picking up pretty big. By the time we got there and got under the causeway, the conditions deteriorated so bad that I could not keep the boat steady in one location underneath the causeway without fear that the waves were going to toss us into these huge concrete pylons that holds that interstate up. And there we were going, how the hell am I going to do this? I can't stay under this bridge any longer. And why is this storm coming where we're at when it's not supposed to be there? So what's the next plan? Next plan is go the opposite direction of the storm. Well, how do you do that if the storm's in a location it's not supposed to be and the radars tell you it's not there, although it is there, and what the radar's showing you has it moving southwest? Well, I need to head southeast and get the hell away from this thing. Except the radar for future casts was wrong. It wasn't going southwest. It was blowing up and expanding and moving and covering the whole damn lake. None of which was scheduled to happen, nor did it show it happening on the radar. So by the time I made the decision, we're going to head southeast, and we started going, the sea condition was horrible. I mean, very bad. I've never seen waves this big. And that was the last place I wanted to be in it. And it seemed like we couldn't get away from it. Lightning started getting worse. It's literally, we're in it. Nightfall comes. It's pitch dark. I've got a light that doesn't do you worth a shit in those kind of conditions. I can't see where I'm going. I can see my instruments. I can see my compass. I can see my GPS. So I know where I'm at. But then when the lightning would flash, it would light up the sea so I could see these giant waves that are, and we could feel them affecting us. But when you see it, when the lightning happens, that's some scary shit. These waves are bigger than the boat. Well, if you know anything about boating, you know what the right thing to do is. And if you don't, well, I'm going to tell you. You turn and you put your bow into the oncoming waves. That's how you do it. And that's what we did. And that was not the right answer. 22-foot boat. I don't know what the actual swells, these swells were, but I can tell you this much. When you hit them and you're coming up at what appears to be a 45-degree angle, and it appears that your boat is going to just turn completely upside down and in the water you're going, that was not the way I wanted to be headed. So I did basically what you're not supposed to do, because I didn't have another choice. Continuing to go into the waves is going to flip us. I need to be able to turn this boat around and go the opposite direction not get, while I'm going sideways to turn around, not get rolled, which I thought was going to happen, and try and ride the top of these things. Basically put the waves at my stern, which goes against all common knowledge and common sense when navigating in rough waters. But I didn't have a choice. In my mind at that time, this is what I need to do. All that being said, when you can't see other than when the lightning strikes, you're worried about the lightning striking the boat. You're worried about these giant waves turning you over. We have an abundance of safety issues or safety things on the boat. Number one, my son and I are both wearing the type life jackets that self-inflate once you hit the water, or you can manually inflate it. We have a 6-man emergency raft that you just throw overboard, pull this lanyard, boom, this thing inflates. It's got a top on it. It's got all the strobe lights in it. It's got everything you need to survive out there if your boat sinks. We've got a radio to talk with the Coast Guard. We've got the GPS system. We've got flares. We are safety packed in that boat. And there's a reason why I do all that, in hopes that I never have to use it. But if you need it and it's not there, well, then you're just shit out of luck. And now I'm thinking, we're going to have to use this. There's no way I can keep this boat from being flipped over. It's that bad, literally. So we have what's called an EPR on board that I purchased. And basically what it does is it sends a signal up to a satellite, and then Coast Guard immediately gets that signal, and they know exactly where your location is based on where that EPR is sending the signal. And I thought, damn it. As many times as I've been in situations rescuing boaters when I was in military aviation, and we go out to sea to rescue somebody out in a boat that's got themselves in trouble, or up in the mountains in California, rescuing hikers that got lost, thinking to myself, how in the world do you put yourself in a situation this dangerous? Just how do you do that? And there I was in that exact same situation. Could I have changed anything? Well, I just could have not went boating when what was supposed to be a perfect day. But I did everything I was supposed to do, weather-wise, and it didn't matter. So when I activated the EPR, I knew the next thing I had to do was I had to call the Coast Guard on the radio and put out a mayday. I've never had to do that before. And that was humbling. I'm trying to also keep my son from freaking out more than he already was. I'm telling him it's okay. Everything's going to be fine. I've been in worse situations. Of course, I haven't. I was literally frightened. I put out the mayday over the radio, gave our coordinates from the GPS. Boom, Coast Guard responded, identified me, said, we've got your EPR going off, we've got your location. But here's the problem. We have 5 other rescues going on right now, and we've only got so many boats and so many aircraft, and the aircraft can't fly in this condition right now. So unless y'all end up in the water, you're not a priority. Continue doing what you're doing. Keep heading south. Try and keep that boat from flipping over, and we will get to you as soon as we can. If you have to deploy your raft and you're going in the water, we're going to change course and send somebody directly to you. Okay. So now I've got no control really of my boat as far as throttles are concerned. It's a twin engine boat, and it doesn't matter. When you're riding waves like this, there's little you can do. I had them in like the second detent, which if I was on a smooth water surface would probably be 20 miles per hour, if that. And it just didn't matter. We were at the mercy of these freaking waves. So, long story short, by the time we got to where we were near the shoreline in New Orleans, it was about 10 o'clock at night. So we had been battling this storm, trying to keep ourselves afloat since right before sunset. So for hours dealing with this. In between all that, my wife's trying to call. She's freaking out. Where the hell are we? Because we weren't back. We were supposed to be back before sunset. Nothing I can do. I couldn't take my both hands off the steering wheel anymore, trying to keep the boat without turning sideways, and ended up getting rolled. So I'm not answering the phone. I can't. We finally get to where we can see the lights in New Orleans. We keep heading that direction. We finally get to a point where at least we're close enough that we don't even need to deploy the raft. If we end up in the water, it's a short swim and we're there. But I can't get any closer to the shoreline because it's a rocky shoreline in most places, or there's steps that come down where people can go sit along this waterfront of the lake. There's no place to put a boat there. And so I'm looking on my GPS to find a place where a harbor we can get into, for instance, and get away from the storm. And I see one, and it's to my west, which means now I need to put my right side against the waves and possibly roll the boat. But I didn't have a choice. I keep going forward, or if I don't turn, the waves are going to force us into the shoreline and destroy the boat and probably hurt us. So I made that decision to make the right turn. And now we're constantly being hit with these waves and literally doing this, where any moment I think we're going to go completely over. And we're slowly motoring along. And then I finally get on the GPS where I see where that inlet is I can get into to get out of the storm. And we head in towards it. And there's giant freaking signs that say boats do not go further due to electrical hazards. I'm like, what the hell else could go wrong? Are you serious? I look at the next location, and it's a good probably quarter mile from me. Got no choice. I got to continue on that direction. And for God's sake, Coast Guard, please get here soon. I'm telling them this. I'm communicating with them on the radio, our situation. And they're like, well, just keep trying. Just keep trying to push to get to that harbor. Get to the next harbor, and right at the entrance of it is a bridge, because it's a road that crosses over that inlet. And it's a great inlet that we could have got into, except it's too low for me to get the boat under. Can't go there. Now I'm just screwed. There's nothing we can do when the Coast Guard finally arrives with the boat. And by that time, the seas further offshore were calming down. And they said, we want you to turn into the wind. We want you to turn in the waves. And we want you to just keep pushing towards us. We can now physically see you. So if you flip that boat, then we're on you. But it's calmer out here. And so we did that. And we managed to get out into the calmer section. And then they said, just follow directly behind us. And we did. And we went another several miles to the next location, which is, and so now it's about midnight. And that location was where we started from, which was the Blue Crab, to go back across the lake. I'd never been happier to see that freaking pier and that restaurant than I was at that moment in life, to finally get out of that and be in a safe harbor. I was scared. You know, I admit it. It was pretty damn hairy. Tied the boat up to the pier, called my wife, who was just beyond herself. Told her what was going on. We're safe. I can't take the boat back tonight. Come get us. So she drove across the lake Driving wise, from our house to the Blue Crab was like 30 minutes in a car. Picked us up. We came home, got home, I don't know, 1:32 in the morning. And we got a few hours of sleep. And then she took me back across, me and my son. Now the weather's clear. Seas were a little rough, but nothing I haven't been in before. And we got the boat and we came back across the lake. So shout out to the Coast Guard, because their calmness on the radio, I mean, they could tell I was a little panicky. And I'm a guy who spent many, many years rescuing other people that found themselves in situations like I found myself into. Most of them, though, they knew the weather conditions and they chose to chance it anyhow and got themselves in those bad situations. Where in this case, I did everything a boater should do before I made the decision to go across the lake or to come back. But the weather radar and the weather stations reporting was not anywhere close to what they were reporting. And that, I think, was the most frustrating thing. I mean, even as we're, 10 o'clock at night in this battle with this storm, my son keeps bringing up the radar, and it showed that storm already west of Lake or of the causeway and nowhere near us. Yet that was just not true. So I've never been in a situation where radar has been that wrong. And so I don't, going forward, it's kind of scary to think that, you rely on these weather forecasts, whether it's for flying airplanes or boating, to get it right, because your life's at stake, for crying out loud. And it was wrong. So could I have done anything different? I think I did everything that I could in the situation to save myself and my son in the boat. The only other thing I could have not done, or that I could have done different, would be just decide we're just not going to go boating today when we've got what's supposed to be perfect conditions for boating. But we're back. We're alive. My wife shows up to pick us up and starts singing the theme song to Gilligan's Island at the beginning of the show. I actually uttered the word bitch in joking, but said, "Bitch, don't do that." And we laughed. But yeah, at least she was able to find some humor in it, realizing now that we're okay. She did mention that, maybe we should sell the boat. And I said, not a chance in hell. You fall off the horse, you get back on the horse. That's just how it works. I've survived several aircraft crashes, helicopter crashes, skydiving incidents, scuba diving incidents, times in combat where I thought, this is it, this is where I die. No, I'm going to continue boating. It's the first time in 63 years to ever be in a situation like this. I hope to never be in a situation like that again. And I'm glad that I'm able to tell the story. And hopefully my story will reach people that have been boating all their lives maybe and thought they will never find themselves in a situation like this. It can happen. When you least expect it, things can go wrong and go wrong very, very quickly. And we were just blessed. That's all I can say. Was it the Lord intervening? I don't know. All I know is we made it back to boat another day, and for me to continue to look in front of this, look into this camera and share my life with you and share the news. And with that, I'm done with that story. We continue on with the news now, which I know you can't wait to hear what I got to say about it. All right. The biggest thing happening right now, obviously, is this Russia-Ukraine war and Trump trying to broker a peace deal. Of course, the Democrats up in Washington, D.C., and the liberal left, especially the liberal news media, are giving him no credit for anything, which even if he got Russia to agree tonight to end the war, they're not going to give Trump credit for it. It's just not going to happen. We've come to expect what they're going to do, and that is everything they can pull out of their ass to be negative towards this administration. That's what they're going to do. They're never going to say something positive about the man. But he has been able to meet with President of Russia, Putin, in Alaska, meet with the Ukrainian president at the White House, along with other NATO leaders that came in to discuss what we're going to do here. Now, obviously, hell, Russia invaded Ukraine, period. Get the hell out. There's nothing to talk about in the war. Well, he's not going to do that. Then what do? You just keep pumping billions of dollars of military hardware into Ukraine to continue fighting back against Russia for a never-ending war? That's what the Biden administration did. Or do you attempt to broker some kind of deal to get them to quit this shit? And if Russia's not going to quit, other than supplying Ukraine, continue to supply them with weapons, and more people are being murdered and or just obliterated with bombs and missiles, what do? Do we, as America and NATO, attack Russia? And then we end up in a nuclear war? It's a bad situation. So it takes somebody to try and broker a deal with these two countries, because Ukraine is saying, we're not giving up nothing. And Russia's saying, we want the land that we've already conquered. And Ukraine's saying no. Okay, so fine. Y'all just keep killing each other. So the whole deal was with Trump, at least somebody's talking to him to try and get them to come to a peaceful solution to stop the killing, stop the war, some kind of guarantee to Ukraine that if, I don't know for a fact that we're going to have them give up some of their territory. I don't know that that's actually in the deal. None of us know that, but I believe that's what they're leaning towards. And if Ukraine's willing to do that, to stop Russia's aggression, then we're willing to help them with security via NATO. Okay? All that being said, before I share with you the latest with that, I want to remind everybody of how we got where we're at and what the Never Trumpers are saying, by none other than somebody who really isn't on Donald Trump's side, isn't really a MAGA guy, Stephen A. Smith.
He caused this now. It's Democrats in office. It was Biden in office when a full-fledged war against Ukraine took place, courtesy of Russia's instigation, no matter what they try to say to Trump. It was Russia that invaded Crimea, and that was under the Obama administration. It was Clinton in office when you made a deal that disarmed the Ukraine and therefore weakened them, leaving them dependent on the United States. And now here they are having to beg for support that they're owed because of what we promised them as a nation. We promised them this. You owe it to the Ukraine. Ukrainians. You absolutely do. I'm not saying I like it. I'm not saying I like spending billions of our taxpayer dollars to them. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is promises made are supposed to be promises kept. You promised them America.
Yes, we did. So where do you go from here? President Trump said today, after meeting with the NATO members and meeting with the president of Ukraine, that no American ground troops would be deployed to Ukraine as part of the security guarantees that the U.S. and its NATO allies have promised to offer. That leaves open the possibility that European countries could agree, as part of a peace deal with Russia, to deploy troops to Ukraine with the potential backing of U.S. air support if Russia tries to attack again. The leaders of Britain, France, and Germany met today to discuss their role in post-war Ukraine. Ukrainian officials argued that only a binding agreement that would obligate allies to defend the country could deter Russia from invading Ukraine again. And he's right. But Russia has flatly rejected the idea of an international force deploying to Ukraine, which suggests that the path to peace deal remains inclusive, even after yesterday's extraordinary White House meeting. Trump has described a potential meeting between the leaders of Russia and Ukraine as an achievement of the talks, and the White House spokesperson said that Vladimir Putin had already agreed to look at it. Look, I'm not opposed to putting boots on the ground as a humanitarian mission at all, folks, to bring in food, bring in water, medical supplies. I'm not opposed to bringing in the Corps of Engineers and the Navy Seabees to help rebuild Ukraine. You know why? You don't have to put combat troops on the ground. You just have to put humanitarian U.S. military troops on the ground, just like we do for hurricane disasters, tornadoes, massive floods, where we go and help other countries and we bring in humanitarian supplies. Because Russia will never, ever attack an area, a country that has U.S. forces on the ground. Not going to happen. All Trump really even has to do is say, I suggest you stop bombing now because we're sending in our aircraft in the 82nd Airborne Division, 101st Airborne Division, to occupy the ground there. And if a hair on a single service member gets injured, you're screwed. Because now we're going to join the effort and attack you back. Of course, then that brings us to a possible third world war. But I guarantee you it would stop the attack because Russia doesn't want that. So you have to bully the bully, basically. Checkmate them. Listen, here's how we're going to play this out. You're going to stop the war. You know why you're going to stop the war? Because we're putting boots on the ground there. You injure one of our troops, all bets are off. We're going to have stealth bombers and stealth fighters up your ass so bad, you're not going to know what to do with yourself. Call their bluff, for crying out loud. It'll work. I've been saying it'll work for a long, long time now. I've studied Russian military doctrine. I understand how they think. And they don't really think. That's the whole thing. They follow orders, only orders. And if something goes wrong and the chain of command breaks down along the way, they're just screwed, which is another reason why Ukraine is kicking their ass on the battlefield. Although that's fine and dandy, but when bombs come in and destroy your city to just crumble it down, then look what you're dealing with. So will we send in humanitarian aid? I don't know. Is NATO going to send in ground troops just to be there? Hope somebody does, because that's the only way to get Vladimir Putin to stop this madness, because he's not about to actively, on purpose, engage NATO forces. It's not going to happen unless he's crazier than I think he is. And I already know he's batshit crazy, but I don't think he's that crazy. Time will tell. We could have an agreement tomorrow. We could possibly, I know they're setting up a meeting now with the Ukrainian president, with the Russian president, and with Trump to meet and sit down and iron this all out. Other than putting boots on the ground to get them to stop attacking, it appears the only other way it's going to end is going to be if Ukraine agrees to allow Russia to have the territory that they've already conquered and let them turn it back into Russia, which they want the entire country, by the way, if you don't know that. They want Ukraine back. That's what this is all about. And they weren't going to stop there. Putin wants to take back all the countries that broke free from the USSR during the Cold War. He wants them back as one big giant country. That's what this is all about. So even, if peace comes out of this and not a third world war, it's going to be because of Donald Trump, period. Not because of anybody else. Donald J. Trump is going to be the person responsible for ending that war. And the left and the Democrats in Washington, D.C. will never, ever give him credit for doing it. And that's pretty damn sad and pathetic. But that's the life we live in today with these nut jobs on the left. Former MSNBC anchor Joy Reid condemned President Donald Trump, Elvis Presley, and others last Friday as some of history's many mediocrity white men whose achievements are stolen or counterfeit. This is the same Joy Reid that was so far left that MSNBC fired her. Reid criticized Trump's review of the Smithsonian during an interview with Wacha Allah from his Left Hook Substack channel, an episode titled How Mediocre White Men and Their Frigidity Are Destroying America. They argued that across American institutions, there is a phenomenon of mediocre white men with no actual culture of their own who co-opt the achievements of Black people all for themselves. Ali opened the episode by talking about Trump reforming the Kennedy Center and what his critics call a hostile takeover. The institution, which in recent years had featured drag queen performances, is now being reformed to show decades more conservative and pro-American content. Trump's announcement this year's Kennedy Center Awards last week, which he will be also hosting. These people cannot create culture on their own, Ali said. Without Black people, brown people, the DEIs, there's no culture in America. We make the food better. We make the economy better. We make the music better, right? MAGA can't create culture. They got Cracker Barrel and Kid Rock. You see the racism yet? Reid and Ali claimed the white conservative practice their own variant of outrage culture where they complain about what they say. They don't have the intellectual rigor to accurately argue or debate with us. And what they do is they tally and tell. They run and tell teachers that the Black lady or the brown man was mean to me. And that's always what they do, Reid said. Reid initially wore a hat dedicated to historical, the debatable 1619 project, then changed to one with the letters FDT, took special umbrage at Trump's efforts to review the Smithsonian historical exhibits ahead of America's 250th anniversary. They can't fix the history they did, she said. Their ancestors made this country into slaves, a slave hell. But they can clean it up now because they got the Smithsonian. They can get rid of all the slavery stuff, she said. They got PragerU, and they can lie about the history to children, she said. They can't originally invent anything more than they ever were able to invent, like good music. We black folks gave y'all country music, hip hop, R&B, jazz, rock and roll. They couldn't even invent that, she said. They have to call a white man the king. Who the hell's calling Donald Trump a king? Because they couldn't make rock and roll. So they have to stamp the king on a man whose main song was stolen from an overweight black woman, Reed continued. Referring to reference the king Elvis Presley singing Hound Dog, which was first recorded by Big Mama Thornton, a black blues singer, written by two Jewish American songwriters. Elvis' version, which was more upbeat with a faster rhythm and slightly altered lyrics, boasted his rise to fame in 1956 after his previous breakout hit Heartbreak Hotel earlier that year. So Joy Reid, who was too unhinged for liberal MSNBC, is now blaming white people for all the continued problems that are happening. Now, I know what you lefties are going to say. Joy Reid didn't say that, Doug. Prove it. You can't prove it. Didn't happen. You're just a lying sack of shit that likes to make shit up.
Joined me in mid-conversation is Joanne Reid and I. We're talking about mediocre white men and their fragility.
Donald Trump, in some ways, people try to say God put him in the White House. I don't believe God is that cruel. But in a way, I'm thinking the way you could justify saying that, Donald Trump is the physical embodiment of all of America's sins. He's sloppy. He's unkempt. Everything about him is false. His hair. He's old, but his followers try to pretend that he looks like Superman. He's a terrible businessman and a failure who gets to fake success because he's white. He's a up, but he's able to be a success because white America keeps saying, no, that guy is what success looks like. He's only a success on that TV show. His marriage is a fraud. Melania clearly won't even touch him. The last time she let him touch her, they had Barron. He doesn't have morality. He got 3 baby mamas, 5 children. He's not handsome. He's not suave. He's not brave. He's not a Christian, but Christians love him. But he embodies the greed, the shamelessness, the lasciviousness of capitalism. And now also to your main, and I think really important point, the mediocrity. We black folk gave y'all country music, hip hop, R&B, jazz, rock and roll. They couldn't even invent that, but they have to call a white man the king.
She's crazy. You know, you can tell a lot by a laugh. No, she's crazy. She's nuts.
That's Trump derangement syndrome 101 right there, folks. And the left eat it up, suck it up like a sponge. Doesn't matter. The white man's evil. Donald Trump's evil. And they just keep doubling down on it. Well, you just keep doing that and watch what happens in midterms. Former Attorney General Bill Barr, remember him, who was appointed by Donald Trump during his first term, but after leaving the White House became an outspoken critic of Trump with full-blown Trump derangement syndrome, had the opportunity to throw Donald Trump under the bus yesterday, which everybody thought for sure he would do in his testimony about what he knew when he was in charge of the DOJ about the Epstein files. But that didn't happen, which is upsetting to the Democrats in Congress. Barr told House investigators that he never saw anything that could tie President Donald Trump to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. In his Department of Justice head, he saw everything there. So did Eric Holder, Democrat, under a Democrat president. Don't you think they would have released it? They tried everything else they could. They even had to make up shit and lie to try and win the election. And none of it worked. He said that he never saw anything that would implicate President Trump in any of this, and that he believed there had been anything pertaining to President Trump with respect to the Epstein list or files, that he felt like the Biden administration would have definitely leaked it out. The ex-Trump administration official is the first person to appear in the House Oversight Committee probe into the federal government's handling of the Epstein case. Like others subpoenaed to testify after him, Barr's deposition is being conducted. Barr told investigators that he didn't know anything about a client's list because there wasn't one, and did not have conversations with Trump about such a list because it didn't exist. Now, where did this client list came from? That came from people like Kash Patel, who is now the director of the FBI, who just assumed before he had that position and was able to see the files himself that, oh, there's got to be a client list. That was just a talking point. And the left ate it up, and they believed him. And now he gets in, just like Barr did, and there isn't one. And if there was one, you bet your ass the Democrats would have released it when they had the House, the Senate, and 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Democrats who were in the room for the first 2 hours of Barr's deposition were more vague about what went on and basically said, we have more questions now than we have answers to. Because he answered all their questions and he didn't give the answers they wanted to hear. So therefore, he's not credible, I guess. Today, the National Director of Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, announced her office had stripped security clearances from 37 current and former intelligence officials, accusing them of politicizing and manipulating intelligence. The DNI memo sent out on Monday included the names of officials who worked at the CIA, the NSA, State Department, and National Security Council, including former Obama DNI James Clapper, who Gabbard claimed told officials to compromise normal procedures to rush a 2017 intelligence community assessment related to Russia's influence in a 2016 election. Being entrusted with security clearance is a privilege, not a right, she wrote on X. And good for her. She's 100% correct. President Donald Trump declared that he will spearhead a push to eliminate the use of mail-in voting machines and mail-in voting and machines in U.S. elections. A lengthy True Social post yesterday, President Trump asserted, I'm going to lead a movement to get rid of mail-in ballots, as well as seriously controversial voting machines. He said he would sign an executive order in advance of the 2026 midterm elections. Remember, the states are merely an agent for the federal government in counting and calibrating the votes. They must do what the federal government, as represented by the President of the United States, tell them for the good of our country. Trump said he nixed the use of mail-in balloting as necessary to ensure elections are on the level, declaring that he and the GOP will battle to restore election integrity. Trump posted on Truth Social, elections can never be honest with mail-in ballots, mail-in voting, and everybody, in particular the Democrats, know this. I and the Republican Party will fight like hell to bring honest and integrity back to our elections. The mail-in ballot hoax using voting machines that are a complete and total disaster must end now. I've been saying that for freaking years. And with all the technology now, the mail-in voting and the electronic machines, and we still have elections, and it takes them 3 and 4 days, a week to get totals. In some cases, in some areas of the country, a month to get the totals. So go back to the freaking, you show up in person and you check who you want. Because that's how you're treating this. That's the only way to go back to fairness, where nobody's going to question, either side's going to question whether or not it was rigged. And in final news tonight, the United States is deploying 3 guided missile destroyers to the waters off of Venezuela as part of President Donald Trump's effort to combat threats from Latin American drug cartels. He has now given the United States military full power to fight against the cartels. The USS Gravely, the USS Jason Durham, and the USS Sampson are expected to arrive soon. A Defense Department official confirmed the military assets have been assigned to the region in support of counter-narcotic efforts. The official from the Pentagon in military planning said the vessels will be deployed over the course of several months. The deployment of U.S. destroyers and personnel comes as Trump has pushed to use the U.S. military to stop the cartels. He blames the flow of fentanyl and other illegitimate drugs into American communities are perpetrating violence in some U.S. cities. Trump has also pressed Mexican president to cooperate more on security than her predecessor, specifically being more aggressive in pursuit of Mexico's cartels. But he has drawn a clear line when it comes to Mexico's sovereignty, rejecting suggestions by Trump and others intervention by U.S. military. Trump this past February declared the Venezuelan gang Tren de Agua, MS-13 in El Salvador, and 6 other groups that are part of cartels as foreign terrorists. Therefore, our U.S. military can engage them. And therefore, we will be able to end this absolute ridiculous craziness that's been happening across that border. The only way to stop the cartel, since the countries that they start in are refusing to do it, is to kill them, destroy them, wipe out everything they have. They're terrorists now. They're designated terrorists, which is a good term for them because that's what they are. And end their reign of terror on American cities. That's how you do shit. That's what leadership looks like. Somebody willing to step up and do the right thing that the left and the Democrats in Washington, D.C. refuse to do because it's not politically correct. Well, fuck your political correctness, because that's what got us in this mess to start with. We're sick of it. We voted that shit out just a few months ago. And I can't wait for midterms to get here. I hope in my lifetime, if I live to be 90, which I doubt it, but if I did, I don't think we'll see Democrats back in power ever again, because they keep doubling down on stupid. The same shit that got them to lose this election in a landslide. They didn't learn their lesson. They still want men in women's locker rooms, men in women's sports, open borders, slap on the wrist to murderers and rapists if they're illegal immigrants, defund law enforcement, have a weak military. All those things that we the people rejected overwhelmingly. One would think they would wake up and realize they're not going to be back in power if they continue down that road. But sadly, those in Washington, D.C. and the Democrat Party, the Jasmine Crockett's, the AOC's, the Alejandro Mars, the Hankum Jeffries, Rashida Tlaib, Maxine Waters, Nancy Pelosi, they're so freaking stupid that they don't see it. And that's good. You just keep pushing that garbage. Every time they open their mouth, looking at a camera, it gets worse. So just keep talking. And slowly but surely, more and more regular Democrats, like I used to be, that's just out there trying to raise their family and put food on the table and go to work, are starting to listen to what the Democrat leadership is saying and what they stand for. And they're starting to realize that's not the values that I believe in anymore, which is the same reason I left the Democrat Party. When I realized it was hijacked by far-left liberal ideology and was destroyed. More and more Democrats, normal Democrats, are waking up to that. And we welcome them with open arms. If you don't want to become a Republican, that's fine. Become an independent and vote on your moral values and beliefs, not because a party, whether it's Democrat or Republican, said this is how you should vote. Use your own damn common sense. Folks, you have many places you can be tonight. You chose to be here with me, and for that, I'm forever grateful. Remember, please subscribe to the channel. Share it with your family and friends. Share the videos once they go up from the live show to a regular video on your social media platforms. Help spread the word. Also, share the DouglasDucote.com website. Go there if you haven't already done so. You can see videos that you can't see on any of the other social media platforms because, I will get barred from, especially on YouTube, from sharing some of the things that I like to share with my audience. I'll be back on Thursday night, God willing, for another live version of the Douglas Ducote Show. I hope you will join me. Between now and then, if something breaks of major importance, I'll be sure to either do a video about it or I'll do a live program about it. Other than that, be safe, my friends. Have a wonderful and blessed night. As always, please say a prayer for our men and women serving the United States military, our veterans, our law enforcement officers, our first responders, and their families. Our angel families, our blue and gold star families in our country. May God bless the United States of America. May God bless each and every one of you. And once again, a shout out to the brave men and women of the United States Coast Guard for coming to the assistance of me and my son Sunday night. Much, much appreciated. And thank you, God, for seeing us through that storm. Good night, my friends.